Lots of people say that a pellet smoker can never make a brisket as smoky and as flavorful as an offset smoker. But is all of that about to change? This is the new smoke cage from Pits and Spits, and it's designed to add more smoke flavor when using their pellet grills, similar to what you can get on an offset smoker. Does it work? And if it does this mean the end of offset smokers forever? That's what we're gonna find out in this video, so let's get smoking. I'm starting by trimming this choice brisket. Just a quick and dirty trim, trying to leave about a 1/4 inch fat cap. One thing I've learned recently after eating at some top barbecue restaurants in Austin is that the 1/4 inch rule is really just a loose rule of thumb. As long as it's between 1/8 to 1/2 inch, you're pretty much good to go. Now, I'm using some Franklin brisket rub to season the brisket, and while I let it soak up the salt, I'm starting up my Pits and Spits. Now, I'm placing the smoke cage next to the burn pot, which is a really interesting design choice in my opinion. A lot of similar solutions go over top of the burn pot, and the burn pot is what keeps the chunks lit in the smoke basket. In this case, you're placing the smoke cage next to the burn pot, but it's a much larger steel basket, so you can put more wood chunks in there, and it's much more capable of maintaining its own fire. Well, we'll see anyway. Moving on to the wood, I'm chainsaw massacring some cherry wood with my alligator loppers into smallish sized chunks. These loppers are awesome, by the way, and they're a ton of fun. I'm then moving over to my chopping block. I'm getting rid of some of this pesky snow, and then I'm axe murdering these chunks down into smaller chunks of wood. I'm also cutting up some birch chunks to mix with the cherry because birch burns a little bit faster. Moving back to the Maverick, I'm filling up the smoke cage to the brim with chunks, and now Pits and Spits told me to use a tumbleweed fire starter in the smoke cage to get things started. I think that's a great idea, but I didn't have any on hand, so I'm using my grill gun. It worked pretty well, but it was taking a bit too long, so I thought, wait a second, why don't I just do this? I just placed the smoke cage over the burn pot, and the edge is held in place by the lip of the heat deflector. That got the fire rip-roaring like an Alberta bush party. Oh yeah, bud. Then I put the smoke cage back where it's supposed to be. I replaced the heat deflector, the drip plate, and the grates, and then I added a large foil pan on the bottom grate. Normally I fill this with water, but I just so happen to have natural organic Canadian snow all around me, so I just piled some in the pan. Tastes like maple syrup and hockey. This pan is going to act as a heat sink to prevent the radiant heat from the drip plate from burning the bottom of the brisket. Now the brisket goes on the incredibly large and solidly built upper rack of the Maverick 1250, and I let it rock at 225 degrees Fahrenheit. After 20 minutes, I'm opening up the Maverick to add another chunk or two to the smoke cage. This is the cool part. There's a little slide that pokes out on the right side, right underneath the drip deflector, and you just slide the chunks down there to feed the fire in the smoke cage. Then you put the next chunks on the upper rack to preheat so they catch faster when you add them another 20 minutes from now. I had my reservations about this chute system, but it actually works really well. I found as long as I was adding a chunk or two every 20 or 30 minutes, the fire in the smoke cage would go strong and produce a ton of smoke. Arguably, it might be an issue if you didn't have a big water pan collecting all the drippings and you had something like a pork butt dripping juices into the ramp on the smoke cage, but you could fix that by just blocking that part of the drip pan with some foil. You could use a water pan to collect drippings, or you could just let Jesus take the wheel and let it drip down. I don't think it would be much of an issue unless you're cooking maybe multiple pork butts and literally all of the fat is running right into the smoke cage, but otherwise I think it should be fine. After smoking at 225 for around 7 hours, I bumped the temps up to 300 for the remaining hours until the brisket got up to around 190 degrees internal. And yes, I added chunks to the smoke cage every 20 to 30 minutes for the entire cook. And yes, it's not as convenient as setting it and forgetting it for 12 hours, but it burned and smoked like a champ, and hopefully the payoff is worth it in terms of added flavor and bark. It turns out it was, and after hitting 190 internal at around the 12-hour mark, I took a look at the brisket, and look at that brisket. It looks like an offset smoker brisket to me, but you guys tell me what you think in the comments. Moving on, I wrapped the brisket in tallow-soaked butcher paper, placed it in a pan with half a cup of water. I foiled it tightly, and I held it in my Masterbuilt electric smoker at 150 for 15 hours. After marveling at my smoky creation for a few minutes, I sharpened up my knife and I got ready to slice into it. But before we get to that, I want to thank Pits and Spits for sponsoring this video. Pits and Spits is a grill and smoker manufacturer from Texas that makes extremely high quality cookers. They sent me this Maverick 1250 pellet grill to try out, and after using pellet grills I purchased from big box stores for my entire life, this was a big eye-opener cooking on what I would call a real pellet grill. The Maverick is made of thick, fully welded steel, so it maintains super steady temperatures. It's got an available Wi-Fi module you can use from your phone, and it has hand-welded slide-out racks on the top and bottom of the cook chamber. A large top rack is an absolute necessity to cook a good brisket on a pellet grill, and there's no shortage of upper rack space on the Maverick. Pits and Spits also uses the catchphrase, "Let's get smokin'," which is the best thing you can say before you barbecue. So let's get smokin', let's get smokin', so let's get smokin'. Pits and Spits has a great lineup of offsets, pellet grills, charcoal grills, and even a pellet offset hybrid that looks amazing AF, and I want it now. So if you guys are looking for an American-built, hand-welded, thick steel smoker that will be passed down for generations to come, then go to the link in the description section below and check out Pits and Spits. Okay, let's slice into some brisket. Now, it's definitely checking off all the boxes of a brisket that looks like it came off an offset smoker, but the big test is, does it taste smoky enough? Does it taste like an offset smoker brisket? So let's cut into it and we'll find out. It's cutting really nice so far. I think I'm gonna have a good brisket on my hands. Let's take a look at this. Ooh, ooh, look at that. Juicy, delicious. Yummy. I know you guys love this, so I'm gonna do it. Oh yeah. Okay, I'll dip that in some of the tallow here, and I'll cut off a slice. Ooh, that is coming apart really nicely. So I'm gonna take a slice of the flat. I'll give you guys a close-up here. Ooh, that's looking pretty nice. And I'm gonna give it a smell. It smells smoky. It smells about as smoky as my offset smoker briskets, so let's give it a taste here. You can definitely taste the smoke in the bark. It's got a lot of smoke flavor. I'm gonna taste a piece of the fat cap here. And I'll take a piece of almost pure bark here to try it out. And now I'm gonna try a piece of the point. That's the first time I've ever seen that. My brisket point had a little vein in it. That's kind of weird. Let's see if the fat cap is fully rendered. It is. It's got some nice yellowish color, caramelly color on the top, which shows that it's been perfectly rendered. It's really nicely rendered. Lots of good flavor. Really smoky. It's extremely smoky. Sorry, I just ate a lot of brisket here, so I gotta collect my thoughts. Whew, getting the meat sweats. All right, my conclusion is this brisket is almost indistinguishable. No, not almost. It is indistinguishable from a brisket that I cook on any of my offset smokers. It's smoky, it's flavorful, the bark is fully rendered, it's that jet black, dark Texas-style bark. It's got tons of smoke flavor that tastes like it's been developed over an open flame, and it is just really tasty and good. I don't know how else to describe it. I came into this video and I thought that my conclusion was going to be that this is almost as good as an offset smoker brisket, but it's not quite there, because I wanted to, you know, find some sort of balance and make the offset people happy, because a lot of them don't like pellet grills and they're all about the flavor of the offset. But I have to be honest here. Don't get me wrong, I love offset smokers, I love pellet smokers, I love all kinds of smokers, and I think that they have their use for specific circumstances and they all do things better and worse than others. But this brisket that I smoked on a pellet smoker is as good as any offset smoker brisket, including the ones that I ate in world famous Texas barbecue restaurants. So this smoke cage from Pits and Spits is doing the job. It takes a little bit of extra work. You have to add splits of wood or chunks of wood every 20 minutes, but you can get offset smoker flavor on it. Is this the end of offset smokers? Is everyone going to sell their offset smokers and get pellet smokers now that they can create just as good brisket as an offset smoker? No, because an offset smoker has a lot more benefits. You can cook a lot more briskets on it. It has a direct convection airflow, so arguably you can get some better fat rendering and quicker, faster, darker bark on the top of the brisket. You could potentially get some different flavors because you're burning a hotter fire that's constantly burning, and you can use different types of wood. So I don't think that this is better than an offset smoker brisket, but it's also not any worse, which is kind of a little different than most people in the barbecue world have been saying about the difference between pellet smokers and offset smokers for a long time. People have been saying that pellet smokers are good for convenience, but they don't have the flavor of offset smokers. I think that is now no longer the case. This smoke cage from Pits and Spits, it produces offset smoke flavor, in my opinion. So take that for what you will. I'm going to continue to use my offset smokers and my pellet smokers and the Pits and Spits Maverick 1250 with the smoke cage, depending on how I feel on any given day, depending on what my goals are, depending on how much I'm smoking. I'll also use my Weber Smoky Mountain and all of my other smokers, including my electric smoker, because I love using all sorts of different smokers. But this is a good brisket. Tastes like an offset smoker brisket. I don't know what else to say, to be honest. I'm interested in your guys' opinion. If any of you have the Maverick 1250 and you end up getting the smoke cage, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on whether you think it's equal to or better or worse than an offset smoker brisket in terms of flavor and bark and fat rendering and taste and everything. Let me know in the comment section below. And if you guys like this kind of content, then consider joining my Patreon. I'll link it in the description section below. You'll get instant access to a Discord chat server where you can get access to me. I can answer all your questions in real time. And we have a really cool community of barbecue nerds there. And we're always trying to develop new techniques of cooking barbecue and helping each other out and sharing pictures of our grills and our smokers and our food. So I hope to see you there, and I'll definitely see you in the next video. Happy smoking.